So we are live. And so what brought this on? You guys are, so we talked about this stuff as far as stuff I wanted to cover.
Yep.
And one thing I ran into not too long ago was, long story short, somebody clicked on or opened up an attachment in an email. Attachment kicked off a PowerShell script. Our controls stopped it in time, but I wanted to take a closer look. So I look at the alert, and it, interesting enough, I'll open up the file now. So I have a Windows 8 VM right now, and I created a snapshot and everything beforehand, but I got some details from the alert. So long story short, so someone opened this document, and as you can see, it was kind of targeted towards right around 4th of July. So, you know, giving them the incentive to open it. So if you notice in here, here's the file path that opened. There's indicating the username, and this is in the cache, thus it was open from Outlook or email client. There's the file name. And so what was ran when this file opened was this command right here. Now, on the outside, had I never seen PowerShell before, like this obviously would have indicated it. Right here, for all my years of Windows experience, I wasn't aware of this being a sys32 path, but it works. And initially, when you look at this, I see all this right here. I go, okay, what's that? But something in me, from what I've seen from looking at different PowerShell scripts in the past from different tools, told me at the very least that the very beginning is telling me something, and there's parts in the very end that are telling me something right here. Like this is piping in an error for each object. Do this. We'll get to that in a second. But this right here is saying string join. So one of the things I thought was, okay, it's joining all these different strings, these numbers right here. And at the end of this, it's going to pipe that command into for each object, and it does something with these characters somehow, which I ended up finding out being kind of XOR statement. And this, me and a coworker walked through this. It uses this as kind of a decoder, more or less. Now, and the first thing, we look at the alert and see what's triggering all this. Oh, PowerShell exe. Obviously, if you look this up on VirusTotal, it's going to show it's legit. You know, a lot of times when these things are ran, if you're looking up, oh, something triggered an alert for Chrome or for Word, obviously those things are going to show up fine in VirusTotal and don't necessarily have a malware signature. So how do we know this is bad? The string definitely, it's not like it's saying, go get this and that. You know, it's not directly telling you what it's doing, but we know it's doing something. So this is something we noticed that it's not like it made it through any email filters we had and any sort of firewall protection, because it doesn't have an antivirus, because it doesn't have necessarily malware signatures. So what are your takes on this from the offensive side of it, Justin?
So basically, from the offensive side, this is something that I started noticing like around 2013 inside of malware, when I was kind of dabbling around in malware analysis. I was noticing that basically it was dropping. First stage was dropping onto the system, and then it was running PowerShell, and it was staging secondary stuff after hopefully bypassing AV. So the thing that happened later on is that a lot of things moving, or usually existing inside of like string-based detection, we're starting to detect particular things within PowerShell that were happening. And also one thing that happens more particularly is that everything that gets passed in PowerShell gets with Windows Defender gets passed to AMSI ScanBuff, and then that uses the Windows Defender definitions to try to detect whether or not it's a malicious action or not. So what people started doing is, with most string-based detections, they started obfuscating, and then it got farther and farther into the obfuscation to where it got to this point where you see this right here, which is completely unreadable. So I've seen a variation of things. I've seen doing it this way. I've seen just joining and concatenating a bunch of strings that are all kind of messed up. And then I've also seen people like load things into environment variables and call in array fashion, like different parts of the environment variable to build a PowerShell string.
Cool. And, that's something that is interesting with this too. The thing that really tipped me off was, and this is kind of where I kind of realized there's a value in doing CTFs, because one of the biggest things in almost every Jeopardy style CTF is you're trying to find something, but it's obfuscated somehow. Now, from the outside, I mean, on the surface, it definitely looks like something questionable, but it would be quite a leap for me had I not done, my fair share of CTFs. Say, okay, this is joining these strings somehow, and it's got to convert into something. Are you familiar with XOR or converting it?
Yeah. So XOR is actually Grant can talk to this. XORing is something that is not just within the PowerShell universe.
Yeah, it's fairly common for us to use it to get around bad characters and exploits, or like what you're doing here to obfuscate something and make it harder to detect.
Mm.
Yeah, so most commonly for me that I saw it is like in learning reversing stuff, Zoring something with itself would make it zero out.
Yep. We ended up breaking this down and de-obfuscating it in the office, but I'd have to save that for a part 2 where we actually do it, because my coworker had a script that ran that managed to convert everything. But you know what? Let's run this for now and see what it does.
Cool. So definitely should also highlight that all this stuff is done on test VMs. Yes. You don't want to just go running all these scripts on local systems. So
and you don't want that bridged into your network if you're using a VM.
Yeah, definitely isolating it, isolating its ability to talk to the internet. Also, like I said, getting into that VM environment where you don't use it for anything else. And for the most part, you want to have one that you can roll back or just completely destroy and rebuild every time.
Yep. This one's pretty expendable, and I've got a few reverse engineering tools, and occasionally use it to troll scammers, but other than that, it's pretty throwaway.
Yeah.
So, let's see. And front. So we're gonna just get right to it. So yeah, that is there. See, this is the thing. This is the fun thing that eventually I want to do some more of it work, is detonating this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going through the process of actually figuring out what it needs at work typically ties into actually needing to know what it does.
Yeah, yeah. Like we spend so much time telling people not to click on things, and then have the instinct of not clicking on things, or downloading stuff. But there's times where I go, I want something to destroy, and I want to watch it do its thing.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So Nick, one of the quick questions I did have before you run that is, I noticed that there's one of the quick questions that I did have before you run that is, I did notice like you have the some of those seem to be like camel case.
Yes.
PowerShell case insensitive?
No, it's not. If I were to hazard a guess, I'd say it's as another layer of obfuscation. Maybe it's filtering out. Like if you just typed it all the same case, maybe there are filters in place to prevent it. But you can use PowerShell in any case. If you are
so it is case insensitive with what you're saying.
Yeah, if you're running commands and tab them out, it'll correct it to a camel case like this.
Yeah, I'd probably say it is case insensitive. I mean, if they're not doing a lower, or they're dropping everything to lowercase on the string-based detection, most likely they're assuming that putting this extra layer could also provide more bypass capabilities.
Yep.
Okay.
Huh. What did it say?
Unexpected at this time.
Yeah.
So one thing is, if it's are you running the PowerShell executable?
No, I typed
when you're running this whole string. Yeah, so gotcha. You may have to actually just type PS and drop into PowerShell.
You know what?
From this system. Yeah, you could do that, or you could just type PS inside of the terminal.
Yeah. I'm gonna just go straight to PowerShell.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier to work with. Actually, so yeah, there tends to be a lot of you definitely always want to test these things. Like even if you feel like you have a payload that works, it's something that you want to test right before you do it, and also understand like what the system has available to it, and test it on as close to the system as you can, because some of these things get weird and you get that giant like red barf.
Here we go. Okay, now we know it's PowerShell. It's running. What do we get? Let's see. Invalid command. The at command has been depreciated. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about. Like a lot of the cases where something is built into it. So if it is the AT command, I think that is the task scheduler.
Yep.
And it could be actually trying to schedule a job, possibly to stage something later. So even if this gets flagged as malware, that task will already be in place. I had to take a wild guess.
Oops, wrong.
So did you say you did have a script that was able to completely deobfuscate this?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, definitely within the blue space, it's always good to have, you know, tools just like in the offensive space to kind of get that edge and speed. And when you see things consistently, you always want to have like an ability to do automated tasks.
And what's the execute? What's the shortcut for the task scheduler?
The task scheduler, I think if you just type in task scheduler, or I think there's a short name for.
Yeah, I'm looking.
That schedules task 1 should be the one.
Yeah, that should most likely.
Otherwise,
be
are you trying to find the exe name itself?
Yeah, I already found it. Got it open now. Let's see. Did it create anything?
So I don't know, but I know like Cuckoo Sandbox and stuff like that will analyze everything that happens during it.
Yeah.
During the drop. Although with PowerShell, I'm not sure that I've seen something like, I know that malware.ru site, or I can't remember the exact name, used to check stuff like this out and actually run it on a local system, but I'm not sure that I've seen one that does that with PowerShell.
Yeah.
It tells you everything that happens.
Yeah. So, and we walked through the first couple of characters before my coworker ended up deobfuscating it. But in long story short, it's using the BXOR statement, and we run these. This is ASCII right now, and it converts based on this, and you're trying to match them up, and you eventually get what I think ended up being base 64. Then we did base 64 decode, and it ended up being the this handy tool, invoke obfuscation.
Okay.
And I did some digging on this. So this guy Daniel Hannon did a talk on it. I think last year at Black Hat, and then has done some other talks on it, and it's been kind of interesting. So
is he pulling directly from the Git repo, or is the PowerShell pulling directly from the Git repo to get it?
That part I don't remember offhand. I either it was in the script, or I did some digging that led me to it. So yeah, so this looks like it encoded this command, and this script has like all the details you need to build these payloads out.
Nice.
So I started digging through. I was like, okay, this is an interesting tool, and his talk was pretty interesting. Like he explains how you discover it. You know, one of the questions I had asked at work was, well, okay, if we didn't have this tool in place, and the tool we used was CrowdStrike, if we didn't have that in place, how would we know this? And maybe it would have been looking through logs. It would basically involving a lot more logging and constant and more of a proactive approach to investigations.
Yeah.
You know, and we were just talking about Splunk recently, and I've said this from experience working in other companies. You get this problem with the bigger companies that seem to go down constantly, where they either don't want to spend the money and time to get a product working, or they are spending on the product that could get their system and environments protected better, or they have all the money and resources, but they don't want to devote the time, because you can buy the $100,000 tool or more that solves problem X, but you have to tune it and care and feed it and get some use out of it.
So in your ideal scenario of being a defender, like what is your kind of workflow that you go through when something actually goes on a system? And also, what triggered you in this situation to realize that this PowerShell had been dropped somewhere?
So we received an alert that pointed out the endpoint. We have agents, like CrowdStrike has agents that go on endpoints, and that'll provide this information. There's agent IDs associated with it, and it gave me most of the information I needed from as far as, in fact, I pulled the script that it showed the file path and then what I just copy and pasted. I was like, okay, this is pretty valuable. It gave me the times and everything I needed, and it's not just a matter of the technical side of things. We also contact the customers or end users and make sure they're aware of what went on, in some cases quarantining their machine if we need to. A lot of cool stuff, but it's definitely not. There's definitely multiple approaches you have to take for each one of these issues to come in. But as far as the managing of the product, it's a lot of care and feeding and getting used to this stuff. Especially since I was starting off, this is one of the first things I started doing in security was incident response. So. From the very beginning, especially because I didn't have the benefit of starting off in a SOC, despite but however, I'd worked in IT for a long time. I know certain things to look for, and know end user behavior really well. So, for somebody coming in new that didn't know that much information, you're coming in with the empty glass, and you're trying to get not necessarily overflowing, but you want to get sufficient with with the amount of information you are able to absorb. So this was pretty resourceful in telling me what information to look for quickly and focus on the relevant stuff and not trying to get every single piece of information out there on something that may or may not be relevant to that particular event.
Yeah, so it's kind of tracing it, right? Like seeing if the actions that were taken on the initial stage could have pivoted to another box or anything like that. Like that seems like a good workflow.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff from the little bit of offensive studying I've done, it's been really valuable for me from a defensive perspective. Because the one thing that a lot of people make the mistake of from either offensive or defensive side is looking at it from one point of view. It's multiple. From the defender side, the really hard part is justifying to the business that, or trying to remind them that, hey, the person attacking doesn't care about your whether it's production or it's a mission critical thing. Those words aren't relevant to them. It's an endpoint. It's a target. It's the first stage of whatever happens next. And that's one advantage that the people on the offensive side have.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I'm curious as to what this thing is actually doing. So I think we pulled a little bit of context out of it with the AT command.
Yep.
Now I'm curious to see it actually de-obfuscated.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people see these strings sometimes, but they don't necessarily see the outcome.
Yep. Let's see. Let's try this. Taking me back to my sysadmin days. So I've done a few things with PowerShell just from an operational perspective. And that kind of comes in handy with this stuff too. It's like right off the bat, I knew this was PowerShell and knew kind of some of the things to expect. Script pane. This.
So you might want to mention what this is. I don't know if everyone's familiar with this.
Yeah, for sure. So I opened PowerShell, and this is it's basically an editor for PowerShell that you can just type stuff out. It's good for when you're putting scripts together or working on tools. Let me find the word.
I just call it PowerShell ISE.
Yeah, ICE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I find helpful for PowerShell is if you're not familiar with the command, there's a cool cheat command you can do called show command. And then, let's see. So with the show command and whatever command you enter after, it gives you kind of a GUI, and you can enter all your parameters in. You can run it from here if you want, or you can just copy the command into something and edit out from there. I've done when I did a lot of stuff on sysadmin side, like building backup scripts. I do this a lot.
Yeah, same thing. Like when I got into PowerShell stuff, I was basically in here just automating all the stuff, and pretty funny because stuff that would get scoped out for like a long time, I would end up just kind of like figuring out and toying my way with PowerShell and pasting and copying different things together and kind of learning it. And then bam, I would like knock out a task that was supposed to take days in like a quick script in like 2 minutes.
For sure.
Not writing the script, but like running the script to take like 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And then like that thing would be knocked out, especially like with migrations and stuff or things that involve like a lot of mailboxes or a lot of different computers. Like it just became like, you know, the golden sword for everything. Like
for sure,
made sysadmin work really much simpler.
Try this again. I'm gonna see this does. It triggered Windows Defender this time around.
Okay.
That's one thing we did kind of a first time red team walkthrough, like just banging around on some stuff and creating a couple flags. And it was actually kind of painful with just trying to get by Windows Defender with a lot of the tools we were using for Metasploit.
Yeah, so I mean, you could always, like, whatever box I run stuff on, I usually do stuff in a VM, and then I don't, if I have to run a Windows machine, I don't put anything inside of there. So that one's safe for everything I need to do, or relatively safe. Right. Because of that. But you can definitely disable Defender.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yes, PC is at risk. All right, let's do this again.
We like to live dangerously.
Come on, come on.
Yeah, that's why I have VMs. I just like to use them and trash them.
All right, what do we got? Okay, an hourglass came up. We know it ran, it completed this time. And now let's see. Let's go to our schedule.
So at this stage, you're just running it just to see what it's doing?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it already ran. Now, what do we have in here?
So was there actually a point when you analyzed it where you ran it and it did create a scheduled task?
We didn't run it. We saw what it was. We after we de-obfuscated, we saw what it was trying to go to, and in that obfuscated code, it looked like it was trying to go to a couple sites, and that's where we dug deeper. So we looked those sites up on VirusTotal and a couple other reputation checkers, and that's when we started seeing a couple of red flags. And then, funny enough, a couple of days later, is this what I think it is? No. And then a couple of days later, we saw a lot more positive results on VirusTotal and other places.
Yeah, so I've seen that where I've uploaded some executables after analyzing them, and they'll have like a 1 or a 2 out of whatever the number is now, 70 or 80. And then when I'll save those results in my login, and then I'll check it like maybe just a few days later, a week later, and suddenly it's up to like 60 or 70 or maybe 50s, where it's actually detecting it a lot more. So I think something being uploaded a bunch of times is a trigger as well. So yeah, it definitely tends to be like a very manual process if you really want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I think in the terms of like with blue teaming stuff, that if it's staged and actually moved to another system, that's what I want to know right at first is like, I think one of the steps in, responding is that you actually want to isolate. So to isolate, you have to know how many systems it affected.
Yeah.
So if it only affected this system, that's one thing. But if it actually moved to another system, I think it becomes like a higher security issue. And also, now you got to start taking action against other systems as well to isolate that issue.
Yep. Yeah, we had an issue a while back where somebody clicked on a link. And they didn't download it. It wasn't to download anything malicious. The link went to a site in the Netherlands that looked like an Office 365 or rather Office Web Apps login. And I'm guessing they were there to harvest credentials. So it didn't have anything malicious in it. and unless you knew, and like the only thing that really flagged was it hitting that domain and the fact that we don't use Office web apps from that older version of Office.
Yeah.
But by then, we had by the time we got to that point, 100 people or more clicked on it. So we had to take action, rolling creds on multiple accounts, notifying people, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that first step before you even move forward, and like doing the preliminary analysis, usually a good idea. Actually, just like did some of this stuff when I wasn't even in a role to do this stuff. Like I've never been in a blue team position, but I always found it interesting to just pick apart the stuff people would click on and the emails that we would get.
Oh, for sure. This is fun.
And I was surprised. Like I've seen emails where they bypassed all of the Exchange forefront security stuff because they did a password protected zip file.
Yeah.
And then in the password, they say, hey, here's the invoice. This has some confidential information, so it's encrypted. Here's the password. And they put the password right in the email. And the person would go out of their way to actually paste that password in and extract it with the password, which is really surprising to me. And then one time somebody thought they got a phishing email. So what they did is they opened up the PDF or the attachment and they printed it out and they walked it up to me and they said, I think this is a phishing email. I was like, well, whatever I was trying to do already happened at this point.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think one of the big things like with blue teaming stuff too that made it the easiest, the company that I did IT stuff, that this was it was the easiest for me to make like decisions about what happened is when we had like a cloud-based antivirus.
Yeah.
Not like advocating for cloud-based antivirus, but some kind of central place where I could go and say, okay, 3 people have clicked on the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I can start to see where things are going off and like, oh, wow, okay, now a PowerShell got detected on, a server or this thing. And it really helped me put the pieces together, which I don't think every environment has that.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to what I said, like you get the ones that there's kind of that sweet spot where they have enough money to care about security and they support their employees devoting time to doing it, not just buying something and leaving it on a shelf.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's that mentality of like them wanting security to be a hole in the wall that they can just patch.
Yep.
But it's more of a vigilance thing. It's more of an active monitoring and actively looking at things that you can, small things make a big difference. At the same time as like a lot of complicated solutions are proposed, really, really small things can change a lot.
Yep. For sure.
Cool. So did that ever run?
It ran. It looks like it ran. I'm not sure what it did. I looked in the scheduled task and didn't see the task rated.
So do you want to de-obfuscate it so we could take a look at it a little bit closer?
Yeah. Let's see. Can I do it on this? Oh, yeah. You know what?
Yeah, you can type in whatever you want in there.
Now that I turn off Windows Defender.
So it does invoke obfuscation. Does it invoke de-obfuscation also?
Yeah, so I downloaded that GitHub repo. And first you have to import this the module for it. He created a PowerShell module.
Yep.
And it's got stuff for, let's see, outcoding, invoke obfuscation. I wonder if there's a way to de-obfuscate. Let's find out. I didn't get around to installing this yesterday.
So this is kind of one of those interesting things where it seems like an adversary is using something that was created through open research. But then again, if they didn't have access to that, we wouldn't have access to the information.
Yep.
So I think it equally opens it up. It opens it up to, the adversary side, but it also opens it up to the our side of it where we actually have access to be able to say, okay, this could happen in the wild. How do we detect that?
Did you type to this PST one?
Yeah. I looked at the instructions for installing it, and it looked like it was pretty straightforward. It's running this one to import the module.
Yeah, so I think when you do, I think you can do import module on the command line, and it should work perfectly fine. As long as that PSD1 file is actually in there.
Yep.
But yeah, none of it's magic.
Nope.
You have to suffer through and figure it out.
Yep. Let's see. So.
There we go. So what is it saying there?
Module manifest is not valid. Cannot find path. Looking for out PowerShell launcher.
So maybe you should just start typing invoke obfuscation and then let it tab complete it, because it's possible that it's not seeing it as what you think. So maybe you should just import. I wonder if you can import the PS1 file.
Let's see.
I'm not a PowerShell whiz or anything, but so that seemed to maybe have worked, and then go to the next step and see if it works. So when you import a module, you're usually able to use functionality. So what is the next step? Like, what is it saying after that?
Let's see. Line 1, character 1. Let's go to line 1, character 1 of.
And is there even a PSD1 file? Let's see. So it's invoke. So if there is a PSD1 file, maybe we just need to change it to that. But let's see. Invoke obfuscation. So you're basically just trying to run it normally?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking. I'm on the GitHub repo now.
So it looks like there is. I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Invoke obfuscation.psd1. So there shouldn't be a problem doing that. Here, go ahead. What I would try to do is I would go back in there and try to let it tab complete, but then try to do it with PSD and see if that tab completes. Because I don't know what's going on there. And I also don't see a PSD1 file. Oh, I see. There it is. Invoke obfuscation PSD1. So that's PSM, yeah. So PSD1. Try that. Oh, that says PSM now.
Yeah.
So what does that first line say? It says
the member scripts the process and the module manifest is not valid. So it needs a manifest. So some kind of XML, some kind of
process.
I think you guys are actually missing a file there.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Are we actually missing that file?
It says it's trying to look for out PowerShell launcher, which is not.
No. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So out.PowerShell launcher looks like it might be here. Yeah, here it is. It's out.PowerShell launcher. So you may not have the whole repo. So I would just copy that again or download it again.
Yeah.
Maybe a zip file of it would be easier.
There it is. Yeah.
Yep. Because this should be self-sustained.
Yeah. So let's do this. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this.
Yeah, probably good to remove the old one, otherwise confusion ensues. You also might need to close the ISE because it's using it right now. So yeah, this is the fun of PowerShell.
Maybe you need to close the administrative PowerShell.
Yeah, you might need to close everything. Yeah, pretty much. Anything that's tried to access it could still be using it.
So. Right. Oh, you know what? I think I know what happened. So you remember the when we ran it the first time, Windows Defender said it removed something?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it removed.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes
Let's
sense.
see. So out, PowerShell launch PS1. Yep. Let's try this now.
That makes sense.
PowerShell. Hey, that worked.
Cool. Back on track.
Uh,
I think at that point you can just type invoke obfuscation, right?
Yeah.
After that, according to his thing. Yep, invoke dash obfuscation, no extension.
Interesting. Ah, there we go.
There we go. Fanciness.
Ooh, colors. There we go. Let's see how to use this tool. Real help. Let's see. Okay, show ops for payload to obfuscate. Oh, okay. So you can create payloads of this. I'm not seeing any sort of deobfuscation options.
Let's see.
Clear screen. Execute obfuscated command locally. Write obfuscated command off disk or set. One of the below options. Obfuscate command tokens. Convert entire command one line or compress. Ooh. Set all obfuscation command.
So there's actually another tool by him called revoke obfuscation.
Yeah.
Which is basically, it says revoke obfuscation is a PowerShell compatible PowerShell obfuscation detection framework. So revoke obfuscation, I'm just going to take a wild guess. Actually,
you think it's going to undo it?
I don't know. I'm reading right now.
Let's see.
Revoke obfuscation compatible obfuscation detection framework. Yeah, to source. Okay, so
Okay. Revoke obfuscation.
Detailed tutorial as well as a few other fun surprises, but if you're not enrolled, you can get to help measure revoke obfuscation. Okay, so I think this is for detecting the scripts. I don't know that it actually deobfuscates them, but one of them is called that, though. It's called revoke obfuscation. I'll take a wild guess here.
Oh, boy. Usage, get single scripts, measure scripts, get child and behind what that means.
Orchestrate the feature vector extraction, whitelist comparison, obfuscation measurements. So I think it possibly does that, although it doesn't give exact instructions on how to do it. Oh, I see. It's like a little thing here. Okay, so it shows that, you know, script is obfuscated, and then it looks like trying to watch this little video here. It's built into the repo. So you guys said you had a script that you were able to use already that did this?
Yeah.
Cool. So we could break it down manually, although that's not very time effective for.
No, it was it's a couple minutes to do each character.
Yeah. So you could try that. You could try the revoke obfuscation.
All right.
let's see. Reassemble scripts from script blocks. Get RVO script block. Yeah, so 2 primary functions and measures input scripts and returns obfuscation score. Cool. So it looks like I can paste this in if you don't know where it is, but here is the one that looks like it rebuilds the script block.
Oh, okay.
So we can consider, like, for this session, you know, somebody starting from not being able to, they get this wild thing, this wildly obfuscated PowerShell. They start messing around with it. They look at it in a VM, and then they start seeking tools that can actually, you know, de-obfuscate this.
Yep.
It's kind of a big part of it too, like we talked about. Like, I want to always show, like, us struggling. It's not something that people are always willing to show, but I think it shows a lot about the part of the process where you are struggling and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and I make the disclaimer that I had already been working in IT for almost 20 years, and a lot of that over the last 10 years was PowerShell and Windows stacks. So even this is as long as I did that, like, there are some parts of it that I might make look easy as far as being able to get into ISE and show commands, stuff like that. But a lot of that's from a lot of stuff, you know, reading a few books, watching a few videos, trial and error, a lot of different things.
Yeah, and I want to keep going back and forth on this. Like, if people end up liking this video, then I can move over and do some red team side of it.
Yeah.
And we can start playing off of each other and start trying to figure out, like, that, you know, red versus blue scenario where it's like you may do something, figure out a way to detect it. I may do something, figure out a way to bypass it. And then just walking people up to a bunch of, you know, red team related stuff that ends up being, like, very commonplace in pretty much every job I've had.
Yep.
So I set up a pivot lab also that I'll probably go into maybe next week, and something that can emulate getting into a network and pivoting around. Hopefully that's useful.
Cool. It's a tutorial. Okay. Art, whatever. Okay. That explains it. PowerShell cookbook. That sounds familiar.
Cool. So it says, I think it says there's 2 commands that are important. It says the reassemble script blocks, get RVO script block is what you might want to try.
Let's see. Okay.
I think there's like capitals here.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like PowerShell, so it's like capital G, get RVO, capital script, capital block.
Not a valid option.
Okay, so you can always drop into the tutorial if that's one of the options.
Yep.
So I don't think we're doing any of that whitelisting stuff, but we are looking at, so it says get child item. I see that, and then it gets passed to get RVO script block. So I think it's saying right here, example 1, example 2, querying local event. Oh, actually, there's a way to query a file, and then it looks like there might be some additional instructions for, let's see here. Yeah. Reassembles the script block, get RVO script block, measure RVO obfuscation, measures input scripts and returns obfuscation score. Get RVO script block, I thought was the thing that we needed. What did it say about get RVO script block? It said it didn't exist.
Let's see. RVO. Just help if I type it right. Yeah, not a valid option. Tutorial, fun facts, credits. That's for revoke obfuscation.
Not a valid option. Valid options, tutorial, fun facts, ASCII, quotes. Okay, type ASCII. Maybe oh no, that's random ASCII art.
Yeah.
Okay,
maybe that's a separate command.
Yeah, that could be an entirely different command outside of all of this. So you might, are you inside the revoke obfuscation thing?
Yep.
You might have to exit out of it and just type get RVO script block.
Ah, there we go.
Oh, that's feature. Yeah. So there's a different one. Yep, there it is. So type that, and then you can do get help on that.
Oh yeah. Or let's try.
So it looks like you just need one parameter. So just type that and then paste in your thing, and see if that works.
Yes. When in doubt, show command is your friend.
Okay. So it looks like, is that where you would? So I think what it's asking for, it says parameter set cannot be resolved using specified name. I think you either need to give it the actual script block, like paste it right in there, or you have to give it the actual file that it's in.
Ah, got it.
I would do get RVO script block space and then the whole string.
Yeah.
And see if that works. So yeah, the one that was done by.
I want just this.
I think you could do the whole thing with PowerShell exe. Actually, is that part of the terminal?
Yeah. So here's the command path. There's the command itself for string join.
And then I think you need the string part too.
Yeah. So take all that.
Interesting.
Actually, let's do this.
Yeah, just get RVO script block. We could be doing this completely wrong, but
there we go. So let's see. Get script block. Let's see. There we go.
a whole lot of mess. Okay. Let me actually look at get RVO script block up here.
Yep.
So you can keep trying. Like it may be also a file that it wants. I would read that error.
Yeah. Let's see. Null valued expression. Cannot bind arguments from it. Oh, okay.
It might not like the way you pass it either.
Yeah.
I think you're meant to be passing it in as like a stdin style input.
Ah.
So meant to be piping it into it.
That's possible. Yeah, piped into it. Yeah, you know what? I think the example that it showed actually did show it getting piped in.
Ah. Yeah, that's not working either. So.
Oh, so actually, no. Here it is. Get RVO script block expects you to pass a file path to it.
Ah. Okay, let's give it a file then.
You need to reassemble, extract script blocks, logs. Oh, I see. Operational logs. Then get RVO script block as your function of choice. It automatically returns only unique script blocks and excludes certain default script block values deemed not malicious. This can be overwritten with -deep switch. So I think it's actually asking you to pass the PowerShell logging location in there. Get event. Okay, there's actually another one that's get win event. Here, this one right here, where it looks like it may get all the events that are PowerShell related. Let me paste this in here.
Yep, not packing file either.
Yeah, so it looks like this one gets win event, log name, the PowerShell files, and then get RVO script block verbose. So I think it grabs all of the things that it considers to be like obfuscated PowerShell.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be much in yours because yours is just a VM. So I pasted it on the side.
So it's getting win event, the win event name, or win event's based on log name. That log is going to be the Windows PowerShell operational. So it's looking for, if we're looking at the command, we're looking for win events, and then it's a log name for the name of the event. And this is the path for the Microsoft Windows Shell or Windows PowerShell operational. And we're piping that into get RVO script block, and it's going to give us a lot more information with verbose.
Yep. So let's see what pops out. Possible reassembly script blocks from input. 0 logs. Okay, so it's possible that maybe did we ever run your command inside of this PowerShell session?
No.
Sounds like we might be misunderstanding something then.
Yeah.
Also supports checks audit results. So it looks like it looks at audit events as opposed to the actual simple script block. I'm wondering why it's not in there though.
And I stumbled on this. Okay, I remember looking this up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it says, wait, a full example against local and remotely tested test scripts can be found below. Get content, a PS1 file. Oh, just measuring the obfuscation. So I think they have a problem even in actually de-obfuscating it once it's actually obfuscated. Doesn't look like there's something that even does that. Let's run the command one more time, maybe inside of this current PowerShell window, and then let's try to rerun that thing to see if it ends up in the logs. The last time we ran it, I think we had Defender on.
No, Defender's off right now.
Before, yeah. So we should probably drop the whole thing on this system, the whole script, and then try to run this again, because it looks like this actually scrapes the logs.
Yeah.
But one thing is, your system might not have PowerShell logging turned on. So if this doesn't work, what we'll have to do is we'll have to figure out how to turn on PowerShell logging, and then we can do this most likely. And especially since there was 0 events, I'm just going to guess that by default PowerShell logging is not turned on. Cool. So I would try to run your thing again.
Yeah.
Or the thing that we just ran, basically. Yeah, it looks like it runs easier if it's just a PS1.
So and Hourglass tells me it's doing something.
So I would try to now run that log scraping thing again.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and if this doesn't work, we most likely need to turn on PowerShell logging, which is actually interesting. Even if we don't succeed at this right now, this is going to lead us down an interesting path, because I'm pretty sure that by default, it's going to have line by line the whole thing. I'm pretty sure that by default, PowerShell logging is not turned on. But I think I saw the command somewhere in there.
It's that one.
Yep. Cool. So I think PowerShell logging is not turned on. So let me PowerShell logging. Actually, let's look up turn on PowerShell logging. So enable greater visibility through PowerShell logging. Engine state is changed from none to available. Oh, okay. So it's actually logging must be configured through group policy. So there's actually what you have to do is you have to go to the group policy editor.
Yep.
And then you have to go to administrative template. I'll go ahead and paste it. So this is actually getting pretty interesting now.
Yeah. Administrative templates for the computer user.
Let me look.
Let's see.
So it looks like this one is for probably, let's see, it doesn't say. Let me look at a different one. Be great if someone had one-liner for this.
Yeah. Windows components. Let's see, Windows PowerShell.
Here
we go. Turn on module logging.
Oh, do you see it in there?
Yeah, so this is based on, I think this is the user setting. So
yeah, so there's
configuration,
I think the
administrator
one
templates, system, Windows components, Windows PowerShell, turn on module logging, and it's not configured. Let's enable that.
So I think is it called PowerShell logging?
Turn on module logging. I'm looking for one specific to PowerShell logging.
Turn on PowerShell script block logging is another one. Do you see that?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Enable logging of all PowerShell. There we go. That's what we want.
Is that the one? It says turn on. It says enable logging of all PowerShell.
Let's see. This policy setting enables logging of all PowerShell script input to the Microsoft Windows PowerShell operational event log. That's the one we were looking at before. If we enable this policy setting, so we're going to enable it.
Yep. So our next session might have to be talking about. We might want to go into some, what it logs and figure out if we can pull this out of there.
Yeah. And on top of that, what I'm going to do is so we'll do that, and then I'm also going to work on deobfuscating this script so we can see what it's doing, what it says.
Cool. So you want to go for a stopping point, or do you want to keep going? I think probably to break this down into more.
Yeah. I want to break this up into multiple topics because we did a lot in this session, whether it be looking at this tool. Which, by the way, if anybody wants to reach out, his name is Daniel Bohannon on Twitter. Give him a shout out and thank you for an awesome tool. It's kind of cool seeing somebody go from a tool go from a talk to being used by an attacker.
Yep.
And he's got a good talk on it. I highly recommend people watching that talk. Next week, what I'm going to do is have this deobfuscated, and then we're also going to see what we see in the logs. I'll roll this back to before we install the tools, but we're going to run this again.
So I'm going to hopefully bounce off of that on the red side. And like I said, all failures on video, all process, all everything, so that everyone can see, kind of bring that to the forefront of like having a problem and not just delivering the solution, but what happens in between. So it's definitely a good session, and I'm
for sure. This is pretty fun.
Yeah,
I have to get some rust off on PowerShell.
Well, now I'm excited because we discovered something that's not enabled. Right, we went to go try to do something that blue teamer like yourself would do, and we discovered, oh, okay, well, we need to turn on PowerShell logging. So now we're getting a little bit deeper into understanding the Windows settings. And
from a blue team perspective, I can understand to a degree why you wouldn't turn on PowerShell logging on a desktop. Servers, on the other hand, you'd want to maybe have more notification. Maybe there's some other tools to do that. Maybe the stuff's going to Splunk already, but having a monitoring script, any sort of scripting being run, I think is highly important. Aside from this, now, if this was somebody in the IT department that ran a PowerShell script, it might have gotten, we might have looked past it. But a little bit of investigation leading this to being an end user, it definitely, like, all the alarms are going off.
Definitely. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be good to learn a lot more about what's there from both sides and kind of start piecing that together. So maybe we'll start doing that next week, maybe 2 weeks from now. We'll try to throw something together.
For sure. It's been fun, everyone. Hope to see you next time. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. Feel free to subscribe to Haxcellent Adventures, Sneaker Hacks on Twitter, and myself, Nick Fury, and as well as TechWiz. We've got a lot more content to deliver and share for everybody, and we're looking forward to it. Cheers.
See you later.